derived from the leaves of the coca plant. When cocaine enters the body, it has a strong effect on body functions by acting as an irritant on the brain. Large overdose of cocaine causes convulsions, then death. Cocaine causes unusual and often unpredictable feelings and actions. In his ignorance, Marty took that dare, little knowing the eventual horror that lay in the deadly white powder.
Marty, have you seen the painting shears I bought last week? Can't seem to find them anywhere. Marty, you don't seem right. I'm worried about you. There's something wrong. I'm going to take you down to Dr. Peters this afternoon for a checkup.
No, I'm all right.
As his body gradually built up a tolerance, he needed more and more of the drug.
Okay, it is showtime. You are listening to K.I.S.S. Recovery 101. This is Bridge. I am the host tonight. And if this is your first time listening, K.I.S.S. is a fun acronym. Keep it simple, stupid. And Recovery 101, just the basics. And what I love about this show is just anything we talk about, we're keeping it simple, not over explaining anything, and I love just leaving it open for other people to have their own processing concept and insight and what they take away. And anyway, I'm excited tonight because I have a returning guest, and what's beautiful is the first time he came on, he was kind of felt a little, apprehensive about, but now he's been doing this recovery Dharma thing for a minute, and very, very, very wise. Just a few conversations that we've had briefly, I'm like, oh, definitely want you back on. So, yes, would you mind reintroducing yourself? And I'm going to get this banner off here. How you doing tonight?
Doing really well. Yeah, I'm Dan. Was on, what was that, August or something like that?
It was summertime. It was warm, yes.
I was a little unprepared, but yeah, I'm back. I'm doing recovery Dharma. I take a wellness approach to recovery. I go to the gym a lot. I've started doing strength training. I do cardio a few times a week. I like to go to the sauna. And I've done some different sort of alternative healing things. And I spend a lot of time on my diet and just, make sure that I'm putting myself around positive people who are doing good things. And
100%. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I 100% align with holistic. Anything holistic and natural, and just I feel like how humans were meant to live, especially with recovery. Now I'm really digging my interest in anything around that. So what's great about being live, Dan, is we have listeners that get to participate, ask questions, make comments. I love getting your viewpoints, your opinions, and just having a 1 hour conversation with anybody and everybody that wants to participate. So, we already got participation. Martin says hello. Hello, Martin. Let's see, Michelle. Oh, hi, Michelle. Okay, wonderful. We're already getting participation. This is great. So if you didn't get a chance, I'll go ahead and read the post so everybody knows where we're at. Are you labeled as agnostic or atheist? Are you just simply questioning your set faith practice right now? Awaken your natural wisdom and compassion. Consider a path of recovery that doesn't need to label a higher power. So, author Noah Levine saw the uselessness of substance use or violence and channeled positive ways for rebellion against the lies of society. And if you're having resentments fueled by today's cultural, I'd say, or social, or religious injustice and suffering, guess what? Recovery Dharma is a way to focus that energy towards compassion within the practice of Buddhism. Do you like that, Dan?
Yeah, it sounded pretty good to me.
Okay. Well, why don't you kick it off? So maybe a lot of listeners didn't hear that first show. So what to you is Recovery Dharma? And then I'm going to go ahead and read what they have. There's a website. There's one right in Twin Cities, Recovery Dharma, Facebook group. But Dan, where you sit today, what is Recovery Dharma?
Well, so can I get into the history a little bit and why I was attracted to it first?
Absolutely. And definitely why I noticed in our conversation you kept saying punk rock.
Yeah.
Where that comes from.
Yeah, I mean, so I graduated high school in 2003, right outside of Chicago, in a suburb of Chicago. And there was a punk rock scene out there at the time. There's a lot of bands that came from that area. I wasn't in a band or anything, but I did play music a little bit with my friends. But I mean, punk rock is like to a lot of people is sort of an identity, and it started in the '70s, but then was big in the '80s. That was a rough scene, and then throughout the '90s, I would say the ethos has kind of like evolved over time. But there's some things that have sort of like always remained the same. And then there's newer things about it now that are really cool. But I would say it started with like outcast kids who didn't fit in. A lot of them had broken homes and stuff like that. But there was definitely a lot of kids from like wealthier backgrounds and stuff like that as well. So the music is kind of like what they bonded over. And I would say a lot of rebellion, rebellious spirit, sort of anti-capitalist, anti-establishment spirit. I guess it's sort of like you see like a lot of anarchist symbols and stuff like that associated with, especially older punk rock.
Well, I gotta say, I 100% align with that because for 17 years, I did not align with the original AA book, the 12 steps, and how it was laid out for me. I had a lot of inner confliction with a lot of things that were said to me, and it wasn't even necessarily what was actually in that book, but how a lot of people's perceptions was thrown down my throat. I really did not. I fought it for a very long time, and really, I was just fighting myself, and it caused a lot of pain and suffering.
Sure. Yeah, I worked the 12 steps as well, and I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of religious trauma, and like I said, the Punk Rock Association, whatever. But if you go to, if you're that kind of person, you're an alternative kind of person. It seems like sometimes it depends on the meeting you go to, but the AA meetings that I was going to, it seemed like this is kind of like sort of a creation, almost like that my parents would have gave me. Like, oh man, it all leads back to church or like something kind of like that, and being talked down to in a power structure and a hierarchy, and kind of patriarchal as well in a lot of them, and a lot of, I would say, untreated or maybe mental health and trauma, and there can be sometimes bullying and things like that. And like I said, I like the steps. The steps are great. The program's great. The book is great. But there's a culture there too that is a little bit different sometimes, maybe, than it should be. But so I mean, yeah, the Recovery Dharma. So there was Refuge Recovery, started by Noah Levine. And there was a bit of a scandal that happened. Also, that was so what he started was a great movement, and I think his books are good. I have not read those books, but I've heard they're basically the same thing. I mean, it's Buddhism, but there are some differences. And yeah, he was more of like a street punk sort of kid out there in Southern California, in LA. And his father was a Buddhist, a well-known Buddhist teacher.
Wow.
Yeah, so he started that, but then so out of this whole scandal, that happened. Basically, the allegations were that Noah Levine was sort of abusing the power differential that he had. And if you're a Buddhist teacher too, you're not allowed to be involved with students. Um, but this is cool. So recovery Dharma is like a new iteration of it, kind of like a Buddhist recovery program. And the book itself, there's no copyright or anything like that, so that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
There's no money going to anybody. It's a peer-led sort of trauma-aware approach too. The other one was not that. So this sort of is, I would say, more inclusive, and I would say there's a lot of things that are better about it because sometimes people are not feeling great about themselves. They're very anxious and easily shaken up, and you're going into this big room of people with AA or some of these different things, and it can be really unnerving. You're in that state of early recovery, or maybe you're still using even, and you are seeking help, and you come to a meeting, and you don't. Maybe you're not running into like a calm environment where people are open-minded and accepting and willing to listen. You may run into people who are more abrasive and stuff like that. So
Well, it was beautiful. You invited me. I came to the one that you go to, the Recovery Dharma meeting, and what's beautiful is that energy. It's something I never felt before. And you're right. It was very like welcoming, but just like accepting. And I didn't feel like I had to know everything. I didn't feel like I had to know anything. I just felt like as soon as I sat down, on the yoga mat in the sea salt wall room, it was great. I immediately just felt like this comfort and just that energy that I got in that room, I've never really felt in any other 12-step meeting I've gone to.
Yeah. I think part of that is, there's just like a different culture with the whole program and different sort of expectations and a different focus, but in celebrating individuals. But also, I think sitting down for a 20-minute meditation where everybody's sort of just sitting there with each other. There is no talking. You're trying to focus on your breath and learn from yourself, but we're doing it together, so it's maybe a little easier to attempt to do that and not get distracted. And it's a really calming way to kick off a recovery meeting too.
And one thing that I would hear over and over again in those just basic 12-step groups was, you are not a unique person. You are not, special. And I thought,
you are special.
I thought that approach is so negative. And so, like, for me, that immediately set me off into that rebellious mind. Like, do not put me in this category with you. You don't even know me. And unfortunately, I just think that's the tone that's set. But really, now I've been able to twist that and make that, comforting in my own through other recovery paths, and then bring it back into now when I do go to Big Book or AA meetings or NA meetings. I make a point to say they mean in a sense of, you're not unique in the sense of when we all walk in these doors, it doesn't matter if you're a doctor or a lawyer or you're, living in a shelter, we're all on the same page. We're all, equals here. You're not unique in the sense of they're trying to, well, my perception now and how I've heard it finally in a more positive way is you're not alone. You're not unique in this terrible substance abuse use disease, and that's what I think is meant to be the message. But unfortunately, with a lot of the old timers and a lot of the ways that there was whatever rooted in them, they're like, I still hear it. You're not unique. There's nothing to me. I'm hearing there's nothing special about you.
Yeah. Well, that's why one of the things in the Eightfold Path of Buddhism is speech. Sometimes how you say something, the words that you choose, and the way that you deliver it makes a big difference. You know what I mean? Because
huge.
You could yell at somebody and say you're not special, or you could maybe think about that a little bit more and deliver that message in maybe even custom deliver it to the person that you're.
So, Dan, I know I asked specifically what you wanted to talk about, so let me just read this real quick. Recovery Dharma is a peer-led movement and a community that is unified by the potential in each of us to recover and find freedom from the suffering of addiction. We approach recovery from a place of individual and collective empowerment, and we support each other as we walk this path of recovery together. I love that. And you wanted to talk on, so one of the big things in the Recovery Dharma is the Four Noble Truths. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
So what did you want to do you want to share on what you wanted to speak on that, especially from where you're sitting today?
Well, I've been sort of so I've been working on basically the Eightfold Path right now, kind of implementing that into my life. So I think that's what I wanted to talk about more.
Okay, yes, and absolutely. And I do have this great book. So I really love, I don't align with any religion. Religion, you could just take that out of my vocabulary. If I had to claim something, it'd be I'm an omnist, which means I take the things from each of the religions, but I don't align all of them. I just take the beautiful things from each of them and make them my own, but I don't like to align. But Buddhism, I got this book called No Nonsense Buddhism for Beginners. And here's what they say on suffering. So the first of the Noble Truths recognizes the presence of suffering in life. The nature of reality is that difficulties will arise and will experience suffering. We can begin to embrace that fact by recognizing that suffering in general is not personal, simply part of the experience of existence. And we will experience suffering no matter how hard we try to avoid it, whether we search for a magic formula to remove it, chase after money to buy it, or seek fame to drown it out. No matter if we pray, meditate, or perform rituals to shield ourselves from it, suffering in some form will find us. It is the central problem of human existence. And it goes on to say, what we learn from the Buddha about embracing suffering is that life is going to be easier for us when we truly accept that suffering is a part of life for everyone, and there's no way around that.
Yep.
So in the Recovery Dharma, like how does one process suffering?
So you do inquiries. There's a bunch of different questions and stuff like that in this book here. After you read those, noble truths, and then the Eightfold Path and stuff in each section or chapter here, there's questions. And so I've done those by myself, but I'm also working on getting together with a few people, and we're going to do that. We're going to sit down and formally go through these with each other, because then you could obviously compare that. So, you're doing a fourth step, that's by yourself, and then with the fifth step, you share with somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like it's kind of the sharing with somebody else, because it's good to get like an objective opinion from somebody else, but you're identifying the places where that's happening. Now, I've obviously already came from a background of the steps, so the meditations that I do, I meditate every day. Sometimes I miss days, if I'm being honest, but I've been doing a pretty good job with it. And I notice the state of my mind and what kinds of things are distracting me, what am I thinking about, what kinds of things are causing me anxiety and causing me to like feel physically tense and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are thoughts that are like stuck in a loop, or there could be a resentment or something like that. And so I then think about those things more. I'm being mindful and thinking about them more, and I try to figure out what has caused those situations. And a lot of times it is actually my behavior. I've identified many different toxic behaviors and I guess patterns of thinking that I've had over the last 6-8 months. I've made a lot of progress on that. Just thinking negatively. Sometimes I'm sitting there judging people for, sometimes it's like no reason. But now I catch myself and I'm like, you're a jerk. But I mean, I try not to call myself names actually, because that's not good either. But at any rate, the Eightfold Path, there's stuff that causes suffering where I feel like I let myself down. Like I want to keep practicing guitar and be able to write music, and that's like something where it's a hobby of mine that I've got a lot out of. And so, like, wise effort and wise concentration with those things. I work with a therapist, and I was diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury not too long ago, and so
Yeah.
I thought I had ADD, but I don't. But I was having a hard time doing things. So I'm working on stuff with her too that connects with this, putting together a routine and a schedule and getting organized and different things that I didn't do before. But then also some of these other ones too, wise intention and wise speech, are like important for me as well, because I do actually talk a lot, and you probably see my Facebook, I post something like every day. So,
You should get a podcast.
but you know what? They're not bad posts, so I can stand behind them. But so sometimes silence is the wisest thing to do. Sometimes I don't know what to say, and sometimes we don't know what to say, and we're just sort of filling in an uncomfortable silence with a bunch of talking that doesn't need to be done.
Oh, okay. That's our first alarm. Do you remember the alarms?
Kind
Yeah.
of.
So that's the first alarm, just reminding me to interact with our listeners, and also play a clip, which I did send you a little portion of. We're going to play a clip. Earlier today, actually, on the Rise Up Our radio show, it's interesting you mentioned intention, because we were really focusing on intentions behind anything and everything that we do, especially with service, and figuring out what your intentions are and what the other person's intentions are, and making sure those things align. And but just to backtrack with the whole suffering thing, there's this really famous, I can't remember, it's like SAD, I want to say HG URU. He's famous, but I listened to him sharing on this motivational channel, and he was saying pain is it's actually can be seen as like good, because it's for self-preservation. It's our body's way of saying, hey, this pain's here to alert you to that this is not good. But suffering is something that we do in our own mind.
Yep.
And that's huge. I love that he said that, because definitely for 30 plus years of my life, most of my suffering came from within myself, my mind, and how I was perceiving things, my past and present, and just way ahead of the future that wasn't even relevant.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about. And that's what's great about Recovery Dharma, is I don't have to suffer. And coming in that meeting and sitting down and I heard it a couple times, is sitting with that uncomfortableness, right? I love that. And I was able to sit in a room with other people also, and just sitting in the things within myself right now that I'm feeling like, suffering from, or even just uncomfortable with, or don't like about what's going on, or just taking that time to, meditate. You get to meditate in those meetings. And I didn't even think I would be able to meditate, Dan, for that long. And honestly, it was amazing to me. I was able to, it went by fast. Just really, I think that energy in that room. Okay, so you ready for the clip? I'm going to go ahead. Sally is my tech assistant. She's going to get that set up. Did you get a chance to listen to it at all, Dan? Oh, perfect. That's actually great, because then you can
Bluetooth connected.
Listen right along with our listeners. And I'm just going to play a couple minutes. So there's a whole bunch of great speakers. So if you go on YouTube on the Motivation Arc channel, so obviously I share a lot from there. You could tell that that's one of the key channels I like to listen to motivate myself. A lot of them have nothing to do, are initially have nothing to do with recovery. However, I tie everything that they're talking about to recovery, whether it's business or success in life. For me, it's success in life, but my recovery as well. So this video is like 10 minutes, and it's called 10 Minutes to Start Your Day Right, and motivational speech by Oprah Winfrey. So this is going to be Oprah, and she really nails it. So you ready?
Sure.
Here we go.
Days. And for me, walking in nature is my solace. It is where I feel that I am one with all, and all being, all creation, and, connected. For other people, it may be dancing, it may be music, it may be knitting, it may be whatever it is brings some kind of rhythmic pattern into your life. Actually, it was Bruce and I were walking on my campus in South Africa, and there were a group of girls dancing literally on the lawn, because Lord knows they love to dance. And Bruce says, oh, that's not just, I said, oh, they're just having fun. And Bruce said, oh, they're not just having fun, they actually are healing themselves. Because the rhythmic pattern, that's why when you've been in an argument with someone, or you're in the middle of an argument with somebody, if you just go and take a walk, or you go and turn on some music and you start dancing, if you just have some form of movement, you feel better. That's number one. Number two, one of the most important things, most important takeaways from what happened to you, I believe, is understanding how the brain works. So you see that beginning with the brain stem, that's the lower part of the brain, all the way to the cortex and through the limbic area, you understand that when you're upset or in fear or angry or are in an antagonized state, and you're trying to reason with a person, a child, your spouse, your boss, your friend, they literally cannot hear you, because the reasoning part of the brain is in the cortex, and what you're saying is only reaching the brain stem. So whenever somebody is dysregulated, which is what that is, being anxious and fearful and yelling and screaming, the thing to do is to calm yourself first. Then you will be able to help that other person get calm and regulated. That's how you get to reason. But if you both are just yelling at each other, literally, and you're going, you don't hear me, and you don't hear me either, and you don't, they actually cannot hear you. That's what I thought was so fascinating. If I leave you with nothing else, just know this for sure. There is not one thing that has ever happened to you, not one experience, not one encounter, not one crisis, not one joyful thing that hasn't happened just to make you better and help you rise. Every single thing you're calling in, whether you know it or not, and when you figure out that you are calling it in, you actually start meditating or praying or doing or having a spiritual practice, which is the number one thing you need if you want to be successful in the world. You need something that gives back and nourishes you, regardless of what you call that. You need to fill your cup so that you can be so full your cup runneth over and you have enough to give to other people. If you don't fill your cup, you end up dried up. You end up tired, exhausted, and don't have enough to give to other people. You end up resentful every time somebody asks you because your cup is empty and now they want some of yours. So your number one job is to fill your cup and make yourself whole.
Oh my goodness. Okay, there was a lot of good things in that clip.
Absolutely.
I'm going to give you the floor first. Dan, anything stuck out to you? Anything you resonated, disagree with, anything?
Yeah, I liked it, first of all, but I feel like we're made of energy, and we're always working with energy. And one of the main things about addiction is like it's about control, where sometimes we're trying to exert too much control, and we're not being wise about it. We're exerting control in ways that aren't going to work, and it's misguided.
Mm-hmm.
But there are ways, like if she mentioned, kind of, if you can stay calm, then the energy of the other person will slowly kind of drop down, and you can attempts to alter the situation that you're in by your behavior and the way that you think, and a lot of that comes from spirituality, like she mentioned. So if you have something like that to fall back on, some mindfulness, that can help.
And something that I like how she said, finding something that you fill your cup with. It doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be this big religious, spiritual, whatever's laid out for other people. Finding something that you, fulfills you and you believe in and you connect with and align with, that I can fill my cup with daily. I need to do it daily, honestly. Is the only way that I can keep myself balanced so that I can be useful and be compassionate and passionate and help other people. But 100%, that's something I have to work on myself every day.
Yeah, it's like nourishing your mind, like you eat well and try to get exercise and drink enough water to take care of your body, but you have to consume things for your mind too. Maybe it's a daily reading or some motivational YouTube videos or Buddhism or whatever it is, but it's good to do positive things for your mind and keep your mental state in a positive place.
Yes, and your energy up and full. And that's what is great about Recovery Dharma for me, is I don't feel like I have to come in there and pray and say, I do believe this and I accept this. Like, I could just be. And one of the things that I love about Buddhism is there is no good days or bad days. There's just days, right? There's no good thoughts. There's no bad thoughts. It's just thoughts. And
that comes from the concept of impermanence.
Sorry, keep going. That's our hot seat alarm. Dad, did you forget about the hot seat?
We'll do the hot seat in a second, but yeah, impermanence is just every good thing comes to an end, but every bad thing comes to an end, and life sort of just flows and moves on, and we cause suffering when we hold on to that, or we hold on to maybe a relationship ending or a friendship, someone's growing apart, or we lose a job, or whatever it is. The summer's leaving and it's getting cold, cloudy, and the days are shorter, and we grasp onto it, but we have to accept that that things change, and this is just what it is right now.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I find, for me, when I was in those dark days, substance use for me was an escape. It was a way to numb. I didn't want to sit with uncomfortable things, and I didn't want to sit with, feeling really bad feeling. I had a lot of big traumas in my life, and because I wouldn't face them or knew how to process them and just kept numbing them, well, at the end of the day, it was all, building up in my body. And of course, it would come out unexpectedly, or, it'd be triggered really easily, and I just wouldn't be myself. But at the end of the day, I realized I was numbing myself. Not only was I numbing myself from pain, I was also numbing myself from joy and love and the good things in life. So,
and not being able to, and you're not able to grow either.
Right. And like Oprah kind of points out for me now, when, suffering is not like an option for me, like I need to address it. Well, I think the key thing that Recovery Dharma has given me is being aware of it, getting that piece of awareness, and then sitting with it and figuring out, this is for me, like she just kind of said, this is a challenge in my path for a reason. What can I learn from this? I always say to myself, like, I have a, inner voice, and I say, all right, challenge accepted. Let's do this. Why did this just happen? Like, what do I need to learn? What do I need to grow? What do I need to step up, on my level of life, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Does it still sound like fire, Dan?
It sounds like smoke and fire. Yeah.
Just a fire sound effect. It's the most accurate one I've found these days.
Make me nervous.
Okay. Well, luckily you're not in this room here, because it is hot in this room. You are joining virtually. I forgot to mention that. What's great is I've stepped out of my comfort zone, and I think it is important, especially when I have specific guests that just can't make it here 8 p.m. Central on Sundays, that I allow the virtual interaction. And I find that it's just, we got the chats, we live, we can still do this. It can still be authentic.
Next time I'll
Okay.
eat a jalapeno during when you play that, and then we'll do it that way.
Oh, don't do that. I saw your chip challenge thing that you did with your coworkers. That looked brutal. Is
I
that?
wouldn't be able to do that, but I'd still be able to do a podcast after I eat a jalapeno, I think.
Yeah.
It would make it more interesting.
Did I have to go to the hospital or? Okay. All right. So you ready, Dan? Hot
Yeah.
seat time. So 3 heavier, deeper, hotter questions that you wouldn't just ask someone over the water cooler, but they're intentional. And that is my big thing for 2023. I don't have resolutions. I have a vision, and my vision in everything I do or say or participate in has to have some form of an intention that I align with. So, question number 1, Dan, I'm going to hit you hard because you've been on the show before. So, here we go. Question number 1, Dan, what is death? What do you think happens when you die?
Well, my personal beliefs on death are it's undefined. It's not. It can't be good or bad if it's undefined. Nobody really knows what happens after we die. But based on some mystical experiences and things that I've had, and spiritual beliefs stemming from that, I think that there's a universal consciousness personally, and I think that we're the universe observing itself right now. That's our present form, and I think then we reabsorb back into it. And I think that the universal consciousness is I think it's made out of love, basically.
Yeah, and energy.
Mhm.
And what's great is I've heard a lot of concepts, and the ones that I really align with is, this is just, we're not human beings living a spiritual life. We're spiritual beings living a human life.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I don't look forward to death. I can't imagine that's going to be something, to look forward to. But in Day of the Dead, in other cultures, it's actually encouraged to really celebrate that next. It's kind of like a next stage onto your next life, whatever that looks like, of whatever planet or universe or realm that it is in. So, okay.
Yeah. I think
I
the
love
goal
that.
is to die in a state of grace. We're working harder and harder to improve ourselves to get to a state of where we're graceful people, and then I can feel like I accomplished what I wanted to do.
Love that. Okay, great. Question number 2, Dan. Okay, this is a rougher one. Is there anything in recovery Dharma that you question or have had to take more time to really process further, to more align with or understand? Or was there anything that kind of stood out? You're like, huh? I don't know. I don't know about this one.
No, there isn't actually. But I mean, there's personalities sometimes that you come across. But I've taken is it in the 12 traditions? Is it, or what is this, from AA where you're separating principles from personalities?
Yeah.
I kept that idea with me because I always thought that was a good idea. But I haven't found anything in the book or in Buddhism that is in any way offensive or concerning to me at all.
Okay. Now, I did ask that question for a reason. There has been a couple things, and again, I have not taken enough time to really process. And I can bring them up to attention later because that's a whole other conversation. But there was a couple things, and that's just with me with anything new. I like to question and challenge things. But there's a couple things that I read in the book that I just need to, sit down with you or sit down at a meeting and ask, what does this mean? Because the way I initially took it, words on the paper, I was like, I don't know if I agree with that. But I can't give a specific example right now because we're going to get into question number 3, Dan. You ready? Last question. This is more personal. So, of course, only answer as you feel comfortable. Now, you can't say yourself, at least initially. But last question number 3. Who, Dan, in your childhood, would you say, maybe before, substance use or anything like that, who in your childhood caused you the most suffering? there anybody that comes to mind?
Yeah. I had issues with my dad because he was pretty authoritarian, but I mean, my dad was good too. They did a lot of good things. So, I mean, I really am not complaining about them. I love my parents, but I did have some issues with feeling like I didn't. I'm using actually someone else's words, but I've used these words before too, where I didn't feel like I had any autonomy. Kind of, it was like a strict kind of Catholic type environment. But and then also in grade school when I was a young boy, maybe in second grade, stuff like that, third grade. There was like kids bullying me and stuff like that, so I kind of withdrew into myself and didn't enjoy my childhood, mostly because of stuff at school, which isn't that's not cool. You know, if you have a kid, you want them to be able to feel like they're enjoying learning, you know, connecting with kids at school. So I feel like the bullying was worse than that was probably the main issue.
Sure, sure. Well, and Oprah references the book What Happened to You. Oh my God, amazing, amazing, amazing. It really clarifies, you know, everyone, whether they realize it or not, had some form of trauma, whether it was, you know, unintentional or intentional. And most of people coming in recovery, you know, where they're at, it's kind of hard to, I think where treatment centers fall is they're not addressing the trauma. They're trying to, you know, have everyone. There's a lot of them out there now saying that they're more personalized and individualized, and that's just bullshit because every person is unique. And for me, I had a lot of walls up, and it took a lot for me to trust enough to really see that truth even within myself, let alone share it. So,
Yeah.
okay, that was great. Let's see, Against the Odds. Oh, that's Phil or Philip, I can't remember. He said, I'm over here praising Jesus. Yes, absolutely. And that's what's great is I think everybody, whatever you connect with and whatever you align with, to each their own, right? And I just think,
Yeah.
I think the point of most, you know, I would say I've gone to all kinds of meetings. For me, the most important thing for me walking into a room is just feeling accepted, because without recovery and in my substance use, from my childhood, I never felt like I connected or was accepted by anyone. And so I do prefer the meetings in the groups where they can accept me as I am and I don't have to follow along to any certain protocol or viewpoints.
Yep.
But I like listening, and I always want to be teachable. And I feel like if I ever come to a point in my life, which will never happen, but I know everything, or you ain't going to teach me anything new here, that's a problem. That's suffering. Oh, okay. So, any final thoughts or insights? Okay.
I was just going to say that's like, I think some of the punk rock ethics and stuff like that were breathed into refuge recovery made their way over to recovery Dharma, because it's a very it's like a feminist, pro LGBTQ. So, I mean, it celebrates the individual differences of everybody and welcomes everybody. Everybody's supposed to be able to feel like it's a safe, healing environment. And that's great, because there's no imperative thing like for some of these other programs like that. And so I remember people when I was younger at the time, though, when I was in like AA meetings, and they were telling me to smile more, and you got to go up there and get in line and shake that guy's hand and all that. It's like, can I just sit here and observe and just kind of like be myself? And when I want an answer, I'll seek it out and I'll come to you. But answers beat into my head, really. I'm just not that kind of guy.
Right. Or you're morally wrong. You're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
It's a little scary. It's threatening.
I mean, also, we need to feel like when we make a decision to do something for ourselves and we want to do it, then we'll be 100% invested in it and we'll get something out of it. But if I come over and start bullying you into, you need to do this, you need to do that, you're not doing this right, there's a slight chance that you might do some of it just to make me stop talking, but you're not going to get anything out of it.
Oh, 100%.
But we need to lead by example, and other people can see our recovery when they interact with us and stuff like that. And we talk about it openly, and we're courageous. So sometimes you'll get somebody, and this has happened to me, and it's always kind of a magical moment. Somebody comes up to you to ask how you're doing it, and if they can come to a Dharma meeting with you, and that they really look up to you and appreciate your support and things like that. So that makes it.
Absolutely. Well, one of these days I'm going to have a controversial show because I found some very disturbing recent things that have popped up amongst churches. And there's, people with substance use are, especially coming in initially, are considered vulnerable adults. And there's a lot of, not just religious groups, and trust me, there's a lot of really great churches and religious groups out there, but there's a lot of ones. There's this documentary I watched where they are going after those vulnerable adults and, having them align with this set faith and this set spiritual program. But unfortunately, because it didn't align necessarily with their soul and their spirit, it didn't work, and it went very much the other way. Anyway, that's a concept that I would love to bring up sometime. Definitely one of the things in the AA and NA groups that I still, to this day, conflict with is the whole self-will versus, your higher power's will. Well, I posted, and I'm going to talk about it another time, but why do those two why does it have to be either or? Like, at this point in my recovery, I've really had so much healing and growth. I kind of feel like I actually like who I am today. And why does it have to be two separate things? Why can't that will be something within myself?
It needs to be executed wisely, is what it is. We have willpower for a reason. And you could say, if you believe in God, you could say, God gave us willpower, but He wants us to use it in a way that utilizes our intellectual capabilities and our love and our heart and all those kinds of things. Then we'll find that and we're using it to be in service of others too. But everybody's recovery path is way different, and it's a unique individual process. And I know you and I both took the CP. You're a CPRS. I didn't take the test ever, but I took the class. So when we received professional training, that's well-informed training, and they agree that on a national certification that recovery is an individual, unique path. People just need help, and they need a guide or support to do that, but it's their path, and everybody does do it differently, and there's a lot of different ways that work.
And good orderly direction. I like to say guide of action, and one thing that I really like too that makes sense to me is, like, why does God have to be a man or a woman? Like, that's a human concept. Like, I would think that's a human concept to be male or female or this and that.
Well,
I feel like it's this great higher being that doesn't have a sex or gender.
People, there's two different things going on in religion. Sometimes people are trying to they're trying to learn from these personifications and words that are really sort of encapsulations of ineffable experiences, where someone has had this complicated mystical experience and they're trying to put it into words, which you can't really do. You can do your best, but you can't do that. But there's personifications like that where we assign a human name to something that isn't human. It's more of a bigger concept that you can't put a word on. And then there's illegalisms too, where people think of sin as you broke a rule, and now either you're going to go to hell if you think hell's a place, or whatever the case may be. But that's not what they are. It's just, I think what they're talking about with sin, I think, is just these are
like
things.
The Four Agreements says sin simply means to go against oneself.
Yeah, and it's something that kind of Buddhism never calls it sin, but they are talking about different things we're indulging in, whether it's drugs, alcohol, unhealthy sexual relations,
Gambling, shopping addiction,
could be food. There's many ways.
overeating. Oh, yeah. To
Yeah, it's all the
indulge in.
same. It's all the same thing going on in our mind. We're trying to not feel something else and pursue feeling good, but we're doing it in a misguided way.
Mm-hmm.
When we do it in a guided, wiseful way, then we can achieve it.
Uh-oh, it's meme time. It's my favorite segment.
Scully.
Boulder. Okay.
I
I do. And hopefully you are able to, you have a phone that you can see. I'm going to flash these memes. So this is called live Facebook memes. And what happens during this last final segment is I like to end things on a good note. We're going to have some laughs. I might have some aha flashed memes, but things that throughout the week I screenshotted and stuck out to me for some reason. And now I get to share them with you, Dan, and anybody else that might be. And I finally am able to visually put them up. So here we go. Let's see. Meme number 1. So, Dan, if you don't mind, describe the picture and go ahead and read what we got here, this meme, because there are some people that do not have the smartphones.
Sure. Well, in meme 1 here today, we have what appears to be a young boy who's...
Little boy.
How old would you say he is? Like 3 years old?
2 or 3?
He's naked, and he's on the second story window, in between the window pane and the blinds on a...
Just hiding. Uh-huh.
There's a little smiley emoji covering his genitalia.
Yes. What does it say?
It says, some days you're totally killing it at being a mom. Other days you get a text from your neighbor letting you know your kid's naked.
It's naked in the window. I love this. And it's from Ed. Mama got problems. This one just nailed it for me, Dan. And this is definitely, something that I align with nightly. It doesn't matter how productive or not productive I feel like I've been. For some reason, my kids like to just kind of throw me off balance and make me question everything.
Yeah, kids will do that.
This is cute. This is so cute. Okay.
They're free spirits.
Yes, I love it. I just wonder what that little boy is hiding from. Naked. Okay,
Oh,
he
yeah.
just wanted to be naked and somebody came in the room. He's like, nope, I'm not stopping my nakedness. Okay. Meme number 2. Did you ever watch that Pawn Stars show? I think it was based in Vegas. Yeah. Okay, so it's those 2 guys, right? Main people. It was a real show. So do you know who they were? I don't remember. I didn't watch that show. Pawn Stars, right?
Scamming people out of their money. That's all I know.
Yeah, trying to make their money.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does it say?
You're so funny. We should go out sometime. And they say, best I can do is Facebook friends.
Oh, bird.
Well, this is talk about a situation where somebody didn't take the time to read into the, social cues and body language and things like that, and they jumped the gun and
Yes.
assumed that there was attraction when, in fact, there was not.
Yes. Has that ever happened to you, Dan? Met somebody out and about and all of a sudden there's a lot there.
I've done a pretty good job of being able to read attraction and be a little bit more less impulsive on my doing that. But so no, I've had rejections on things like that before, for sure.
Well, and it could go the other way around too, where you're connecting maybe virtually for, whatever messaging or Facebook or and then you meet in person and you're just like, ooh, maybe I should have gave you my number.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. You can sort of make up a story in your mind about who this person is that you're talking to, and then you meet them, and your made up reality is now shattered.
And this happens kind of a lot, especially in the recovery community, because if you're nice, Dan, and as a female here, actually not binary, but as a woman, if I'm nice, I could be, apparently, it's not okay to be too nice, whatever that means. And I could be misperceived as, well, you were flirting with me. What? I'm just funny and you were making me laugh. So now because I smile, I'm flirting. I don't know. Okay, we're moving on. This one's great. My bestie Sarah sent it. Just words.
Never argue with left-handed people. They are not right.
Sad joke. What do you think of that one? Are you left-handed, Dan?
No.
Okay, so you did not take that personal.
No, I mean, it's stupid. What am I going to say? I mean,
It's a great pun. It's,
yeah, I mean, well,
they're not
sometimes they're
right,
really stupid.
literally.
Sometimes these things are so stupid that you can't help but laugh at them. You know
Well,
what
and
I mean?
I actually aligned with this one at my job at the city. There was only 4 of us in the office, and the 3 of my coworkers were all left-handed.
Get out of there then. You got to get out of there right away.
They were proud of it, and they had their own sense of, let me tell you how things should be done and did. One of them I definitely cut it with really well, but they definitely point out the left-handedness is almost a disability, because every equipment and all that stuff's made for. So I had to hear about it all the time. So in my mind, yes, they're not right. Okay. Meme number 4. Now this I really like. This actually comes from the 4 agreements. The 4th agreement, I love. It's the only action agreement, but it's to always do your best. However, reread it recently, Dan, and this piece I didn't really catch the first time. Would you want to read that?
Sure. Always do your best, but don't overdo. If you overdo, you spend more energy than is needed and go against yourself. If you do less than your best, you subject yourself to self-judgment, guilt, and regrets. So yeah, that's like a wise effort thing. I think it is good to always do your best. But yeah, I think our intentions sometimes are wrong. We're trying to impress people or whatever it is, but sometimes the best thing is to get the job done. You know what I mean?
Yes, the disease to please. I'm a retired people pleaser now. And where I was able to finally draw that line, Dan, is to realize the expectations I've always had in my head originally were so set high, it was ridiculous. I always got that label overachiever. What I realized in one of my DBT groups, this guy Chris said, the enemy of good is perfect. And that really sunk in later. Yes, focus on making it really good first. Make sure it's solid and good. Then if I want to go over and above and beyond and I have the time and the energy and for whatever reason, I could do that. But like the 4 agreements, I didn't read that book at that point, points out it's all about energy. And if I'm putting too much energy in this other thing, that I'm not able to, it takes me a while to restore again and put energy into the things that really matter.
Yeah. Well, that was why the Dharma Jam thing that we did, I actually did go up there and play some guitar this time, which I didn't do last time because I'm not very good. And you know what? It's not about that. And who cares what anybody thinks? Like, it's about having fun. We did jam out a little bit, and Damon was playing drums. So it was a good time. But overall, I would say it was a good effort, and it was like a good exercise in being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and like really living. Because if we try to be perfect all the time, that's impossible, and we can't live or connect with people if we're thinking like that.
Yes, I'm my own worst enemy. I was always beating myself up because it wasn't perfect, and now I'm just like, it's gonna be good enough. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Okay, next to me, and I love this. Describe the picture if you can. It's a little confusing at first.
The picture is a muddy, wet dog with he's even got some grass on his head, like
mud patio
of grass or mud. And there's a couple dogs in the water, sort of looking at him. He's on the shoreline, but it's just mud. And then it says, when you're comfortable with being around yourself, being yourself around others.
So the other dogs are out just enjoying the water.
One
dog's
muddy.
Like, yeah.
He's comfortable he's comfortable showing his imperfection.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that is definitely 100% me. I mean, I wouldn't say 100%, but especially around people that aren't in recovery, I'm okay just being me. If they got a question, I'm confident enough now I can answer that. And more along the lines, if they don't accept me right away for whatever reason, I'm okay with that too, because I accept me. That's all that matters.
Yep.
Okay, this one I thought was really, really powerful. It's a quote, if you would mind reading it.
If you don't heal what hurt you, you'll bleed on people who didn't cut you.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and it applies to trauma. You see people taking their problems out on other people all the time, and then that negativity spreads around. But if
Mm-hmm.
we're able to make ourselves into positive, upbeat people, then we can lift other people up and we can spread positivity around. So it really starts with us as individuals.
Yes.
We need to do work on ourselves to get there.
And at the end of the day, hurting people, hurt people. But what I love now that aligns with me is healed people, heal people.
Yeah.
So spreading that positive energy. Okay, next beam. Oh, just words again. Oh, yeah, you can kind of see where I'm at in my life now, Dan. Go ahead, read that.
If you think I'm flirting with you, I'm just being friendly. If you think I'm weird and I make you uncomfortable, then I'm probably flirting with you.
And I'm probably flirting. It's just awkward. Yeah, I don't
Oh,
even
man.
know. I've been out of the dating game for a long time, and I just feel I can see the expression. And then when I'm not even trying or attempting to flirt at all, somehow it's perceived as I'm flirting. It just, I don't even know. But when I do like someone and I've been trying to flirt, I never hear from them again.
Yeah, I think, guys, and I don't want to play into the gender binary or anything like that, but women and men do sort of behave a little bit differently because of our emotional conditioning over the years. This is not generally true. There's obviously exceptions to that and everything like that. But there's a lot of men are not they're not the best at dealing with emotions, and they want to be tough and feel like they're strong. So they have a hard time with vulnerability and observing things and sort of understanding how to approach a situation. So they may, I think it would be, if there's a misunderstanding about flirting, if it's handled okay, that should be fine. Nobody should have to be uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, communication and honesty is key.
You could
But I
just
think
ask somebody if they're flirting with you. I mean, you could just ask them that if you want.
I've uncomfortably had to ask, so you want to keep hanging out? Do you like me? But literally, it doesn't matter, men or women, because for me, I don't know what it is, but if I like someone, I'm feeling a good energy or a vibe from them, it could go one way where I don't say anything at all and I'm trying to reserve my little bit kooky craziness, is whatever. Or it could go the other way where I'm overly you need to think awesome, so here's all these jokes, and it could blow up in my face either way.
Yeah.
But learning that it is what it is. Let's move on. Let's move on to Shrek.
Yeah.
Looking a little.
I'll get a guy hitting on me, so then.
Oh yes, yes, it could go either way.
But just because they're a gay guy doesn't mean anything, because guys hit on girls like that too, and then you're like, this is an interesting approach that I've never had from a girl, where it's kind of creepy. And it's like, dude, what? This came from nowhere. So.
Well, and I like both men and women, so that's just out the window. I can't gauge it at any level.
Oh, well, then I don't know, Rich. That's a you problem, it sounds like.
Yeah, let's move on to Shrek here. Now I align with Shrek a lot. So he looks a little irritated laying in bed there, maybe, or distressed, or what does it say?
When you agreed to go out and the time to go out is getting closer.
Yes. I've been very hermity lately. I'm going to blame it on the weather in my car, but...
Gotta stay active. But yeah, I mean, he's just laying there in bed.
Dreading it. And I have not done the radio show in person for a few weeks now. We've been doing virtual or just replaying shows. And I was excited about it at first. And then, like an hour before I had to get in the car, I'm like, why am I doing this?
We
I
also
don't know
got
what
that
I'm
big,
doing.
we got that big COVID wave starting and everything too, so maybe that's good. You know?
Nah. And also, but here's the thing. Once I got in studio and we did the show, and I, even during the middle of the show, I'm like, I am so glad I came. Why do I do this? Because I find comfort in, being at home. But yes, that was a big part of my substance use was when it turns to isolating and pushing people away and not being a part of society.
Yeah,
Ugh.
don't do that.
Gotta force myself sometimes. But yes, once I get out and about, I'm like, yes, this is what I need, adult interaction. Okay, this is just words. I thought it was funny. Are you a math genius?
I'm okay at math. Dear algebra, please stop asking us to find your ex. She's never coming back, and don't ask us why.
Don't ask why. X and Y, both letters, and algebra. But if you read it out loud like that, what does that say to you?
Axis on the Cartesian coordinate plane.
Yes.
Well, it doesn't mean anything to me. I mean, it's kind of
The X's are X's for a reason. That's what I always say.
I would say algebra needs to let go and take time to process the breakup and then get back out there.
Ask themselves why. Maybe they'll find some answers.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, last, and you've been a good sport. Thank you so much, Dan. Last and final meme. Hopefully somewhat, I usually try to pick a wise aha one. Here we go. Oh, yep, words. Can you read it?
May you have the courage to break the patterns in your life that are no longer getting you,
Or serving you.
serving you. They're no longer. Okay, sure. Yeah, this one speaks to me, and I still have patterns that are not serving me. Some of them I've broken. I feel like I am in the process of discovering them, and then I'm going to do something about them too. So there's like stages of change and all that. I don't know. Was that what you were talking about with shadow work, where you don't know something that's wrong? But
Yes.
okay, because I just read something about that online because I didn't know what you were talking about, so you freaked me out.
Oh, Carl Jung, J-U-N-G,
Yeah.
really thrived on shadow work, and that's just exploring the dark parts of yourself, that hide in the shadows, per se.
Oh, yeah.
I love this one because for me, again, I was able to accept myself, forgive myself, because those patterns and those cycles that I had before grew out of survival. Like I needed those things to get through my childhood. I was in a very abusive home. However, crossing that threshold, it took a long time for me to understand that those things that I was using that, came from my, trauma and being triggered and stuff were now hindering my recovery and hindering my relationships with anybody and everybody. And to become aware of, okay, this was not my intention. Now I've pushed this person away, or now this person doesn't understand, or I don't have that relationship. Why? And being able to really process that and look at myself and say, okay, everybody doesn't have to be red flagged right off the bat, Bridge. Like, you can have a flag for whatever reason. Something inside of me felt this apprehension. That's okay, but let's address that. Let's give it time. Let's process. Let's maybe, take that time to get to know where it's coming from, but also give that person some grace, right?
Yeah.
And so I find that, my circle, my recovery family is so big now, at different levels. And 3 years ago, Dan, I didn't have anybody. Like I didn't have family. I adopted, whatever, never had family. I didn't have friends, Dan. All I had was my kids. And I remember going through the courts and going through child protective services. They'd always say, well, what's your support? I'm like, what do you mean? What's my support? like, who do you have? And this is in the middle of a divorce, by the way. I'm like, I have myself. Like, why do you keep asking me this question, you know?
Yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
really understand that, yes, life is meant to be connection with other human beings on the deep level, you know?
That's where we derive our purpose and our meaning is through connection with other people. We have to be a part of a community.
Yes.
Had the same problem here too.
Yes, the opposite to addiction is connection.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is a wrap. It is oh my gosh, it's 9:08. Okay, well, I really appreciate you coming back. And you know, I'm going to have to ask you to come back again because I left that. I cannot think of it, but there was something I was really questioning. We got to have a conversation. I think it'd be best to have it amongst everybody else.
Always glad to come on. Thanks everybody for listening, and it's always an honor. So
Yes, and I will post. I will definitely post a link to the Twin Cities Recovery Dharma. They have I think it's every day of the week a Recovery Dharma meeting you could go to.
sure, yeah, we got our Friday night creator space at 7:00, and then there's a Sunday over at Minnesota Zen Center that's really good, which starts at 6 p.m. And there's
Yeah.
a whole list. There's Shambhala, different groups of people, different personality to the group, kind of. So depending on which one you go to.
Yes, just finding your Zen. I love that. Whatever that could mean. So, and just try something new. That's my jam. That's the only way I learn is just try something new. So, all right, everybody. We'll have a good night. We will sign off, and we'll check in next week. Thanks again, Dan.
Yep. Thanks.
Have a good night. All right.
All right. You too.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.